The Rays game, the Rays lose, which is something very uncommon. And they'll fly out by Wander Franco, and they lose to the Orioles 4-2 on Buddy Martin. The program is the Buddy Martin Show. It's Tuesday night. That means David Whitley is in the orange and blue room, and he's got some explaining to do. Stand by. The Buddy Martin Show is on the air. Tell your friends and neighbors to come join us.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to a Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. I am he, and we are on 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. Tonight, our usual sterling guest. I think he came to Bentley again tonight and got his, I don't know if he got his Dom and his, whatever we have served to David, whatever he wants. David is standing by, David Whitley, and we're going to talk about this when he gets here. Take a good look at this. Some of you folks will know who this is. Been around a while. It's not the exact thing David had on his wall, but it's similar. And somebody kind of famous saw that and commented. So we'll take a quick break for a commercial and come back. And David is right here, right now. He'll join us on the Buddy Martin Show to talk about his collection.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, thanks, Jeff Cardoza. Titan MRI folks over there owned the piece of that horse I picked in the Derby, Forte. Except he didn't run, he got scratched, and he won't be running in the Preakness, but looks like a great horse. Let's go talk to a great horse here, a guy who does it all, longtime friend, columnist for the Gainesville program, Gainesville Sun, and I almost said program because there aren't many papers left. Thankfully, the Gainesville Sun's one of them in the Gannett chain. Of course, he writes for David Whitley. Good evening to you, David. How you doing, brother?
I am doing fine, buddy. How are you tonight?
Doing okay. My Rays lost tonight, unfortunately. But, yeah, they've been winning more than they've been losing. They're way out front. The Yankees, I think, are in last place. That makes me feel pretty good right there, you know. So, yeah, so a lot of talk this week about, you know, the portal and things happening. There's a story tonight that actually on Twitter, it's not really a story, but it is kind of a story, that the defensive back that Florida thought they might get from Louisiana, who played for Billy's school last year, and I think the year before, I believe, and has 2 years of eligibility left, good defensive back, was being sought by Alabama and Auburn and Tennessee, a whole bunch of people. Florida thought they were in it, but apparently not. He's going to Alabama. So one more, the score one against Napier in the portal. We'll see how that plays. You'd think he'd get a guy, David, that played for him.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly worked well with Osiris Torrance and Montrell Johnson.
Yeah,
and you'd think he'd have an in. I don't know if this particular kid, I think he's a cornerback, had any other Alabama ties, but yeah, you'd think that he'd have an in, unless maybe maybe he didn't like playing for Billy. Go back.
Or maybe he liked playing with Alabama. Maybe he just the allure. I mean, I can understand that. You know, wanting to play for Saban in Alabama and all that. Tebow almost went there. Not to play for him, but almost went there.
Right. I mean, it's not like he chose, New Mexico State, something like that. This is the neighborhood that and just the race that Florida has to run. It's the Kentucky Derby. It's full of studs.
There you go, man. Exactly right.
And you got to keep pace, and and they set a blistering pace.
Yes.
And it's not the first one they've lost to Bama. It won't be the last, but you just got to pick some that don't go there, and you're seeing that a little bit more. I mean, you look at the quality of the recruiting class that they have. I guess it's number 3 ranked for just the 9-point whatever average of the recruit that they have.
In the 2024 class, not 2023.
Yeah. Right. The 2024 class, which is where I think you can really start making a fair judgment of his recruiting prowess. I mean, first time around, you're doing I mean, sure, there's a lot that goes with being the coach at the University of Florida and recruiting people, but there's also a lot that comes with having relationships that that take a while to build, especially in high schools. And but after he's been here 18 months now, give or take. Those relationships should be built. So I think that we can give a fair assessment of his recruiting prowess after this cycle.
Good point. Yeah, very much so. I'm having kind of a little yin and yang with my buddy on Mondays, Shane Matthews. We do the show together on this program, and I do his show Tuesday morning. And he's taken a really strong, positive outlook on this now that he's back from his coaching gig. And he's predicting Florida to win 8 games this year. We've had this discussion a lot, and I don't want to come off as a negative person. I'm going to help you get me out of this mode apparently I'm stuck in, because today on Shane's show, people say, why is Buddy going so negative? I'm negative? I didn't think it was negative. Just pointed out that as a journalist, we like to be able to see things, and if we can't prove it, at least have a pretty good analysis of what's going on. And I just haven't seen enough to know. And I'm not sold on Graham Mertz. I'm not saying he won't be. I don't think he'll be Joe Burrow, but he doesn't have to be. He only has to be Stetson Bennett, apparently. But anyway, so to get to that, we'll adjudicate that all through the show with you and me, and we'll talk about how you take a position. You don't really take one, except if I said to you, David, give me your number of wins for Florida this year. You'd give me a number, and it'd either be too high or too low for fans out there. And that's the way it goes. But it's not our job to say, let me give them a number and make them feel good. It's our job to say, here's what I think, right? So I'm kind of cast in this dark light, which is an unusual role for me, David. You got to help me out of it.
I don't think you're being negative. I think you're just being a realist. And you see the schedule and you see what they have coming back, and you say, all right, I'm with you. I mean, what is your prediction on the over/under win?
Well, I haven't, but I'm inclined not to go much over 6 right now until I see more.
Yeah.
And I know that I got several surveys to talk about tonight. ESPN's chart, they're in favor in 8 games. You've got then you got the DraftKings list, which lists them at, their over under is 5.5. They're betting, and so I've said I thought there was between 6.5 and 7.5, but I'm not seeing any evidence to go to any higher than 6 or 6.5 right now, and maybe I will, but right now, what little I've seen, and not been much, just the spring game and a practice, and that's about it. And I have a hard time. As much as I like Billy and think Billy's got a good system and think he's thorough and think he's done a lot of great things, also say, and I'll say it again, he has everything he asked on his wish list he asked for, doesn't he? I mean, Santa Claus came along and Scott Strickland said yes. Of course, the facility was already started. He got the NIL deal. He's gotten a recruiting budget. He's pretty much gotten everything he's asked for. So now it's time to tee it up and say, okay, it's go time. And now it's time to see what Billy's, as I like to say, SEC poker hand, what kind of poker hand he's holding. That's where I am. I don't know. Does that sound negative to you? Maybe I sound negative. I don't know.
Well, it sounds negative if you see the world strictly through orange and blue glasses, and a lot of people do. They don't like to face the facts, but the funny thing about these facts is the glass can be half full or half empty with these facts. You could build a case for them to like the called the Shane case to win 8 games. Now I think part of it may be that after being exposed to that Orlando team for so many months, any team looks like an 8-win team after that. After what he's been dealing with,
yeah, he knows he didn't have a very good team there.
That was a tough sled.
Yeah, you mentioned orange and blue glasses. It's funny. It's a term my friend and I in Denver used to use all the time. We're talking about the Broncos or the Gators. He would tell me, buddy, you got those that gum orange and blue glasses on again. Here's a funny bite from that, if I can find it. And I was talking to Jeffrey Meldon today. Look at his new glasses. I'm not going to play the whole commercial. Listen to this. Last time I saw him, we were going to a football game, the orange and blue game. And, Jeffrey is an inveterate fan. He's always trying to one-up everybody. And now, look at him. Got a good-looking pair of orange and blue glasses on, dude. Look at you.
Yeah, man. I love them, buddy.
They look sharp. Now, here's the thing about it. When you're a reporter, they always tease you if you say anything or too much positive about the Gators. They'll say, take off those orange and blue glasses. In your case, you can put them on and talk about the Gators, right?
I need to.
There you go. I thought that was kind of funny. Orange and blue glasses. He actually has a pair, so looking good. All right, so David, let's do this. I'll give you the choice. You want to go on with our discussion of the projections for the team, or go right to the Woody Page story involving you?
Well, we were rolling on the team. We can get to the Woody thing.
All right,
but.
Just look over David's left shoulder and see that sign behind him.
I'll see if I can adjust.
Go the other way. There you go. Right there. That's a topic of discussion involving Woody Page. All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, here's a couple of things I saw and read and heard. And I want to get your response to it. All right, let's talk about these charts that they're putting out these days. I don't know this guy who put this out. His name is something Ford, and he put out a chart that said, number one, here's the toughest schedule in the country right there. So he said, number one, toughest schedule. So, it certainly is not an easy schedule, and I have a hard time finding 6 wins on that schedule right now, but things do change. I don't know what you see there, but so there,
I see. Yeah, I see a lot of tough Saturdays.
Yeah,
well, and I can't tell just looking at it, but I'm sure this is based on some sort of mathematical formulation and analytics where he just got the win percentages of every team and balanced them out, and you mix in just a little opinion and projection because obviously what they did last year doesn't mean they're going to do it next year, but that's as good of a starting point as anything.
Yeah, really. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So he's an outside observer. He's not really a local, not a Florida guy. It's,
and you look at that. I mean, even if you are you borrowed Jeffrey's glasses, you have to look at that and say, all right, Utah, it will be tough. Tennessee is going to be tough. It's here, but it's, going to be tough. Although, you can make a case for the next 3. I mean, Kentucky.
You could get 2 out of 4, McNeese and Charlotte, I guess, and you can see you in Kentucky and maybe to Vanderbilt. So let's go. That's the upside, right?
Right.
That's the upside.
If you want to look at the games where you right now you feel, they definitely will not be favored. I mean, there's I would go Utah, Georgia, of course, LSU, and FSU. I mean, I think those are, if win any of those 4, it would be considered a pretty big upset at this point. Now, then you got the toss-up games, which I think if you're tossing them up, you might not. I mean, I don't know if Tennessee be a toss-up.
I give Tennessee the edge there right now.
Yeah, that's iffy, but you can see, certainly a win. I mean, McNeese and Charlotte. So at worst, that's a 2-2 start. I can see a 3-1 start, and then Kentucky they beat that. Vandy, we talked about it somewhat last week. Vandy's on the upswing, but holy smoke, I can't fathom that Billy would not have that team ready for Vanderbilt after last year.
Those are winnable games. There's a lot of them in the top. If that were 2 years ago, we'd say, okay, maybe they don't beat Utah. They'll beat McNeese. They'll beat Tennessee at home. Beat Charlotte, Kentucky, Vandy. Okay. We're looking at 5-1 at the break. We'll go for that, right? Not so
Mhm.
much, because right now I got to prove they can beat Kentucky and Vanderbilt and South Carolina, teams that are ranked ahead of them by most people. So that's one way to look at it. Then the other way of looking at it is this guy put this up as the toughest schedules, and said there's no way that these ranked teams could go, win 10, 12 games in a schedule like this. So Florida was ranked, and maybe the same thing. Anyway, so that was the topic of conversation. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like you said, we started someplace.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, well,
here's
it's that time
it's
of year.
right. It's
Wait,
right
wait,
here.
wait.
Here it is. I'm sorry. Here.
Okay.
There's what toughest schedules.
Uh-huh.
And look at the SEC schools.
Right, these
Florida,
will be the
Ole
chances
Miss,
to go
Auburn.
unbeaten. Yeah.
Yeah, the toughest schedules.
Yeah, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of 10 are in the SEC in the top 10.
Right. And then there's Rutgers. There you go. So,
Yeah.
so some tough ball being played there. Anyway, we're going to be doing this all summer long. We reserve the right to change our minds, right, if we don't like how we pick them. But what are you seeing right now? How many wins?
I am seeing, I like these projections where they have 5.5, 6.5. I will safely predict that they will not win 5.5 or 6.5 games, because if they do, they will set. It'll be quite a mathematical quirk. But so everybody who gives it the half game, I say that's a cop out. So I will go sort of half full here and say 7 wins, because you can make the case that, all right,
you can find 7
Graham
in there.
Graham Mertz is going to be a decent quarterback.
Well, but that's always going to be, and that's what we're doing now. We're busy projecting. Yeah. We don't really know.
Right, we're projecting.
We're buying stock. We don't know what it looks like. So.
That's what we do for the next few months.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But you can make the case. Graham Mertz isn't going to pan out, and then you can go with the glass half empty kind of thing.
Yeah.
Either way, it's just talk till September or August 31st or 30th, whatever the kickoff day is.
Yeah,
and we'll know.
Let's bring
some
of
to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Let's bring a few other folks in here this evening who are checking in. I want to pay respects to them. David Baldoff and Dan Bond out in Texas. Becky Smith Carlisle, who's usually one of our first in. She's hadn't been around a while. Becky, good to see you. Robert Turner from McDonough, Georgia. David Hunter, local guy right there in Orange Lake. Happy Tuesday to you. Jim Galloway. Toby Parmenter, who's here for the trivia. He wins every week, it seems like. Frank Almeida, our good buddy there. So good evening, Frank. Jerry Vitaliano. Good to have you back, Jerry. Michael Burton, one of our good friends of the show. And then comments about various other Sunday things on the schedule. Let's see. Well, anything worth repeating? Dan Bond says, doesn't the 2024 schedule get changed because of our OU? And yes, it does get changed because they haven't made it yet. They can't until they know who their permanent rivals will be. All right, David, it's time to get. Go ahead.
I'll say that'll be the interesting news in the next couple of weeks once they because the spring meetings crank up late end of the month here, and that's supposedly when the long-awaited schedule and the announcement of the 3 rivals will be made, and that'll be good fodder to chew on for a few weeks.
Yeah, and Destin and the SEC Media Days, and next thing you know, we're in summer, and then we're training for the fall. Meanwhile, the transfer portal has made for interesting conversation. Tonight, Florida apparently, I hate to say lost one because they never had him, but like we said, the defensive back who was played at Louisiana went to Alabama. So I'm not sure how Florida has done the transfer portal. Now we're going by field. Recruiting has been pretty good and real good for 2024. I'm not sure. They're still looking for a quarterback somewhere. What's your sense of how they're doing, and can they improve their hand in recruiting even this summer for any other players to be added, David?
Yeah. Well, my sense from the portal recruiting is that it would be mediocre. Because I think he wanted to have a full roster at this point. He's got 4 open scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
and I give him this. He's not just giving them away.
No,
he's not just So he knows what he wants, and if he's not going to get it, he's not going to say, "Well, let's just fill it with somebody else," which obviously is the way to go. As always, it starts with QB. I think the main thing that beyond the quality that might be a concern is the quantity, because they only have really 3 guys that have taken any kind of snaps, and Max Brown, you can't really count that because his snaps have been in the orange and blue game,
right?
And so if one gets hurt, suddenly you're you're paper thin at that position.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, at this point, the people have talked about the one kid, and I forget his name, who's a 2025 commit, who might reclassify and come in. But that strikes me as pretty pie in the sky, because the kid would be an 11th grader this year.
Yeah.
And you bring him in. I mean, it might be okay for a long range plan, but you're sure not going to put an 11th grader in if you can at all avoid it. So that wouldn't help him.
You wouldn't think so, but you know what? Florida's got a kid that should be a senior in high school playing second base for the baseball team and playing well. And I think has had enough more home runs than any second baseman. So it can happen as a freak every now and then, but so far we haven't seen him. Now it's time for Kirby Smart. All right, now I want to say this. I told you folks about this guy. All kudos to Kirby for he's winning the championships, and Coach Spurrier says he likes him because he coaches the right way and all that. But I got a bone to pick now. I remember when we started discussing whether the Florida-Georgia game should and could be moved out of Jacksonville. Myself, you probably know I don't want to see that game moved, and that's Tony Barnhart and what have you, but there are a group of people, among them Kirby, who says, well, we got to do it because it hurts us in recruiting. And I wrote a column in which I said, tongue-in-cheek, bulletin, Kirby Smart said they're canceling Thanksgiving this year because it's going to hurt recruiting. And where do you draw the line? Now, here's what's interesting. I just read this story. The Georgia Bulldogs have turned down the invitation to the White House. Okay? Mm-hmm. I don't care about your politics. I don't care which side you want to take. Doesn't matter. Seems to me when the president invites you to something, you ought to try to make it. I mean, regardless of what party he's in. But they decided to cancel, not to go. All right. Well, they asked him about why not. He said he cited scheduling concerns for recruiting.
Yep, that would be Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
You would think when I read that too about half hour before the show began, and I didn't think it was political at all because they would avoid that, but I knew it's always tough to schedule these things, getting 90 guys, well, probably with the whole staff, 150 people up there to the White House, and maybe you don't get the whole team, but as you said, this is the President of the United States and going to the White House, and I don't think that ever gets old, and so I would think if nothing else, you get a skeletal crew up there, get 20, 30 players and the staff, and you can zip in and zip out in half a day. But, Kirby, you said, he is just so hyper-focused. His whole world revolves around making that 400th text that day to some, 4-star in Oswego, Oregon. Or he can't go to sleep. He is obsessed with this. And I have no, if you say to cancel, he'd cancel Christmas. If he was, good thing he got married before he got that job, because I'm sure, he wouldn't be married now if they had to set a date because it's sorry, honey, that might be a recruiting weekend.
Yeah.
The Jacksonville thing, that bugs me too. I mean, part of it is just because, it's just such a great tradition, but, the way he's just been banging the drum, I mean, he's had the number one team now recruiting class for, here Alabama every year for as long as I can remember. Of course, his argument would be, well, it would be even better if we could get one more home game. But
exactly.
And those things you can't tell, but in his mind, it will bother him. But to me, I mean, there is more to just the whole experience than just signing, your 15th 5-star that day. There's so much pleasure that the fans who pay your salary to a large extent, they get a big kick out of going to Jackson, especially I think more so Georgia fans than Florida fans.
Well, they have
coming
they have their the Georgia fans come down a week in advance and take the whole
Right.
week off. Come to
Oh,
the
yeah,
islands,
I mean,
come to May Island, and
sure.
come
Right.
all the up and down the coast. We all know that, but anyway,
Yeah,
it's
and the
about
economic impact
recruiting.
that has. Yeah, but I mean, Kirby would junk it all just to sign one more 5-star as opposed to having a 4-star. And to me, yeah, and now until last year they weren't allowed to give them tickets, but now they
Now
at
they
least
get
the home
tickets,
team can give these guys tickets. So if I'm a recruit, I've seen all these. I've been to every big home stadium. I want to see. I think one might be impressed to go to that Florida Georgia game and see what it's about. I mean, they have enough intelligence on these kids.
They say they can't
intel, as
control
we
their
say.
time. They're not allowed to have anything social for them. I don't know. The rules can be changed. But anyway, it's kind of ridiculous. So it's it is what it is. I'm not going to say anymore. It gets my blood boiling. All right, let's talk about you and Richard Nixon. All right,
my old friend.
Yeah. By the way, have you ever been to the White House?
Yeah. Many years. In fact, I was a kid. I think Nixon was the president when I went. I've never been invited. Let's put it that way. I would just there with my on a tour with my parents.
I was invited too by the press secretary, and Nixon was the president right before Watergate. It was a freak thing. I met him in the Catskills for a tennis tournament. My wife and I did, and he told me, he said, if you ever get to Washington, come to me in the White House. And I happened to find myself in Baltimore 2 months later for a Jets-Colts game. And I realized, hey, I'm right down the road from the White House. Maybe I'll call and find out. I called. He said, I'm leaving in 2 hours. How fast? I said, I'll take the train right now. Got in the Metro liner. I thought, I'm going to the White House, right? And so I go maybe 30 yards and pull in a tunnel, and the train stops. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I walk up and down, waiting in the tunnels. Waited. The conductor came by and said, well, we have an electrical problem here. I said, how long? We don't know. They have payphones. We didn't have cell phones then. They had payphones. And I called the White House. I said, hey, man, I'm stuck out here, but I'm coming. He says, I can't wait around. I got to go. It wasn't long till I saw him on TV defending Nixon in Watergate. There you go. So, so they're turning down the White House deal. So it is what it is. Nixon.
I have been to the library in Loma, where smaller south in Southern California. Yeah, Loma. Is that Loma Linda?
Yolinda? Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Loma Linda.
Loma Linda.
Yeah, because actually, I remember we was out there for a game, and with some other sports writers the day before, and we had a tea time at a golf course near there, and we passed on the way, and we got there, and our tea time moved back like an hour and a half. Said, well, let's pop up to the Nixon Library. We zipped in. And it was, it's not. I tell you what, no matter what your politics, I've always tried to go out of my way to go to presidential libraries because if you like history at all,
sure.
I mean, it's just amazing. And plus, you see how much bigger these libraries have gotten. I went to the Truman one, and that's the size of a really nice house. And Truman was quite a consequential president.
Yeah,
I'll
say. Independence, Missouri.
Yeah. And the Nixon one was it was at his birthplace, and they have the cabin he was born in there. But it's fair size. But man, you go to these now, like the Bush one in Texas A&M, and it's just like a monolith. It's like the Pentagon.
Yeah. Yorba Linda, says Michael Burton. Yorba Linda. So
Okay.
Dan Bond says he's been there too. White House, White Case. No, wait, hold it. I got that wrong. Dan Bond says, I've been to the White Castle.
Oh, well, even better these days.
You imagine how
I admired about the gift shop at the Nixon Library, it had T-shirts of the famous picture of him and Elvis when Elvis visited the White House.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of speaks well that they had the Elvis photo in the gift shop there.
Yeah. All right, so now you got to explain that. We got to explain the story about this. I got to let me set it up. Pull it out there. Go this way. And last week when David was on, Woody Page would happen to be on Twitter. Some of you may know Woody. He's kind of famous. He's on Around the Horn. And he repeated the tweet and retweeted it. And we had quite a number of people watching. And a couple of us said, "What's that guy with the Nixon sign in the back of his head?" And what he said, and nobody really know. How come that guy had that Nixon sign? I said, "Well, there's a story behind it, and I'm going to get it." And I called you and said, "Well, Woody Page wants to know why you have that Nixon sign up there." So there it is, Woody.
Well, because it says now more than ever, and again, we don't want to get political on here, but the way it looks with the probable Republican nominee and the definite Democrat nominee, I would vote for Nixon at this point. But
good point. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, I get the point.
Because I think Nixon, were he still alive, would actually still be younger than the current occupant of the White House.
Everybody's got to read. We vote against people anyway. We don't vote for presidents. We always vote against.
A lot of it's just for fun. Just a friend of mine actually gave me this for Christmas last year. So it is a gag, and I was going to put it on my car. Then I'll just put it up here.
Yeah,
and
now it's famous. Now it's very famous, David.
I mean, because Woody, he's made quite a career out of his chalkboard behind him there on around the horn.
Yes,
doing that. So I should have expected he would be the one who would notice it.
And he does. Those are his. He's written a book on that too. Those are pretty clever. But he's a pretty clever guy. I worked with him for a while, and he's a clever guy. And I think he's ready to get out of the newspaper business, but because there isn't much left, whatever. Yeah. So
he's had a good. Yeah, he's had a good run.
Oh, great run. Yeah, for sure. A great run. Yeah.
Quite the run.
Yeah.
But I'll try to find a McGovern bumper sticker somewhere.
Yeah, because you voted for him to balance it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so, now some young people are saying, "Who the hell are these people we're talking about?"
Right. Yeah. Well, look at it. See, I can cut young people a lot of slack on not knowing some things, but you ought to know your presidents, or at least the names.
Yeah, I don't
expect you to be able to recite, William McKinley's foreign policy.
Right.
But you should know the name. Oh yeah, I know who Richard Nixon is, and all right, maybe you don't know who he defeated at this point, but it was remember that George McGovern. Hubert Humphrey.
Yeah,
I remember that. But of course, the big, the one that will live in infamy was when he lost to Kennedy in 1960. And,
I remember Hubert Humphrey because he got the bridge built down in Cocoa when I lived there. The bridge we could never get across because we were going to work at the day newspaper, and across the river was a drawbridge, and sometimes you were an hour late to work because the drawbridge was down. And Hubert Humphrey came in and did a parade one day, and he got held up by the bridge. He said, "That's it." He went back to Washington. So they have the Hubert Humphrey Bridge in Cocoa right there. So there you go.
Yeah, Hubert, HHH. And one thing I remember about Nixon, one of my first memories of college football was at that one of the games of the century, that Texas-Arkansas game in '69.
Yep.
Yeah, when on Thanksgiving, and number one versus number two, and he flew in, and it was quite the big to-do. I mean,
listen, he came to the Derby when I was there about that same time. I think it might have been '68. He came in with his entourage in the press box. All of a sudden, the press box was flooded with people, the press corps, Nixon, the whole deal. Yeah, so crazy stuff back in those days. All right, David, I'm going to do a quick commercial break here. Stand by 1 second, and we'll be right back to finish up this segment and talk a little more about what do you got on your agenda you want to talk about. I'll let David. It'll be David's guest call coming back after this time out. We're going to hear from our friends over at Meldon Law. Meldon Law sponsors a lot of things around this community, certainly the scholar athlete stuff, and of course the University of Florida events you can get tickets to. But there are certain events that are special, and I know you got one you sponsor, and let you tell us about Pat Dooley's golf tournament.
Well, everybody knows who Pat Dooley is. Great writer for the Gainesville Sun for over 30 years, and he honors his father, Pat Dooley, every year. It's the 28th annual Bob Dooley Invitational Golf Tournament, and all the money raised goes to the Stop Children's Cancer Organization, and they're a terrific group. It's a fun tournament. It's coming up on May 13th at the Ironwood Golf Course.
That's right around the corner here.
Yeah, and we're proud to be a sponsor. We're going to set up the tent and give away neat swag and have a good time, and make sure everybody's got a cool beverage.
All right, don't forget, check it out. And again, Jeffrey sponsors lots of things, including the Dooley Golf Tournament, and proud of what you've done in the community, and especially the Scholar Athlete things. Jeffrey Meldon Law, he won't back down. All right, so there's a good cause right there. Let's see. Let's go up and see if we get find our friends. Get David back on here. I think we've got Kyle. No, Lauren standing by. Kyle's due up in a minute too. Let me get David back on. We lost in the presses. All right, so David, what's been occupying your attention? What's coming across your desk, as they used to say back when we had desks?
Yes, back when we had desks. One thing that's interesting me, and I'm sure it's interesting to you, is the sudden panic about gambling in college sports. Mm-hmm. Although, someone asked me that, said, did people not see this coming? I think everybody sort of saw it coming. And the question is, it was a freight train. What do you do to stop it? I don't know. I mean, the SEC saw it coming as far back, it was 2018. That's when they set up signed the thing with this Integrity USA, sort of the gambling watchdog that actually red flagged the Alabama coach. And he got canned last week. And that in itself is just curious, how the Alabama baseball coach basically just threw away his career. It seems like he was just tipping off a buddy of his on a game,
or placing a bet. Whatever he was doing was stupid.
And maybe he thought, well, gosh, it's just an Alabama baseball game. No one will notice. That's the problem. It was just an Alabama game where nobody bets on these things, and suddenly somebody's laying down $10,000 on it. Yeah. And they say, something's up here. Yeah. So if you're going to do that, you got to lay down.
You might know something. I would think, right, maybe. Yeah. By the way, it also happened in Iowa too.
And I think that sounds to me more like they read the riot act to their athletes after this came, as they've done, I'm sure, at every college in America this year, in the last week, saying, reiterating the NCAA rules, no gambling on anything, blah, blah, blah. Right. And if you have, fess up now, because we can find, and the fact is, it's not that hard, a lot easier to find a paper trail now if people have DraftKings accounts and all that to find out who did. So I think that, a lot of these kids, there's 100 some odd people in Iowa and Iowa State, and I think about half of them are athletes or related to the associated with the athletic department. And I don't think that any of them were betting on their games, but they were just betting on something, and that alone made it a violation. And there's a lot of different layers to this thing, and one of them is, why shouldn't a swimmer for the Iowa State basketball or swimming team be able to bet on, the Tour de France, something like that? And the answer is, well, because it's just that's the NCAA's answer right now.
Here's a guy who's been around the game a while. And by the way, I was going to ask you all, including Lauren, what can you remember, anything when you're in college to gamble? I got a big one that I want to share with you. I'll say good evening to Lauren, say good evening, Lauren, to David, and we'll talk a little about this. How are you, Lauren?
How you doing, sir? How you doing, David?
Good, Lauren.
He just got back from, Rome? Is that where you were? Rome?
Rome and Paris. For a while. We've been back about a week and a half now. Yeah.
That's old news now. Yeah.
Very nice. I was thinking about going to Rome, Georgia in the next few days. So.
Yeah. I hear that's nice too.
Yeah, it's often confusing.
No, it's
same
not.
Coliseum, the whole deal.
No, it's not. Yeah. So here's one I'm going to do hopefully a piece on this week. It was a famous game at Florida Field. It was famous for lots of reasons. One is it was Ray Gray's first season, his first home game against Georgia Tech, his alma mater, and his good friend and mentor Bobby Dodd. And oddly enough, Bobby Dodd's son played for Ray Grace as a backup quarterback. But to add to this, we didn't know this until the day of the game. A gambler known as Aaron Wagman reached out to one of the players, John Macbeth from Pensacola, and apparently we trying to get him to agree to shave points. And John Macbeth went to the authorities. Although some people think knowing John Macbeth, he might have taken it. But anyway, that was just a little joke. And said, this guy's offered me money So set up a sting for Aaron Wagman, and the FBI got him. Okay, FBI got him and announced it on Saturday of the game. Come the day of the game, you might have heard this name, David, Larry Libator, a little 150-pound quarterback who played ahead of Bobby Dodd Jr. Florida had the ball, drove downfield. Lindy and Fanny was the guy who was playing. He scored the touchdown. And Florida was behind by 2, and they never tried a two-point conversion. And Florida's previous coach was the most conservative guy since General Robert Nealon. In fact, he played for him, Bob Woodruff. And so now the moment of truth was there. Would they go for 2 or would they kick it? And Bob Woodruff would have definitely kicked it without question. But Ray Graves held up 2 fingers like this, and they went for 2. And Libator scrambled out and tossed a little pass over the middle to John Macbeth. And a guy from the St. Petersburg Times, Bill Begg, wrote a lead that said, it's a diminutive quarterback threw a 2-point conversion to an honest fullback. And Florida beat Georgia Tech 18-7. And I'm going to write about this because it's been around. I mean, it's not brand new. I mean, goes back and look at Kentucky basketball. Look at North Carolina, the famous scandal they had in the late 50s. And my friend Doug Moe was caught up in that. As a matter of fact, it cost him his job, his scholarship, although he was innocent. So, guys, let's start with you, Lauren. Have you've been coaching, and David, you've been around the game. Have you ever known of an incident where a person was shaving points, or they got reported or got busted? Anything you can remember about gambling, Lauren?
I think the only one that I think I know about that I guess point shaving or gambling wasn't there. Well, I mean, I knew about the one, I guess, Boston College,
right?
Point shaving, that one. I remember that one, or heard about that one. And then, as far as I guess gambling, I was thinking, being from Ohio, I remember the issues that Art Schlichter had.
Right.
Although I wasn't in college.
Well, he was a bookie, wasn't he? Booking him?
Yeah. Some people think it goes back to when he was at Ohio State, but. Yeah. Obviously had some real issues with gambling, but I remember I watched the 30-30 on the Boston College players on ESPN, and then obviously I remember Art Schlichter, like I said, being from Ohio. But that's really the only 2 I can really remember that I know of.
Yeah, David, what about you?
Well, I was going to make up that. Yeah, I was when I was covering the 1919 World Series. And I sort of suspected something was up when the White Sox kept screwing. The pitching staff was just not performing as well. But that was a little before my time. But I guess that was the go-to scandal. The Black Sox and Shoeless Joe Jackson, which I think got everything going. But I personally have never covered one or been around. I've certainly read about them, and I was reading the list this morning. There've been more than people know. A lot of them didn't blow up the huge scandals, but just in the last 10 years, there've been at least 10 where people were caught, players or something, to maybe just 1 or 2, and it wasn't nothing on a grand scale. But it's like a lot of things, you got 10, but you don't know how many fish got away, and you'll never know. And it's this. That's what they're going to have to live, and what we've been living with, and we're definitely going to have to live with from here on out. Yeah. Now that it's just America likes its vices. We tried getting rid of alcohol, and that didn't work out. Gambling was held in disrepute for 200 years, but now it's legal, and you don't think anything about it is funny, and it wasn't. 10 years ago that the NFL was, if you mention the word Las Vegas and with NFL, they would hold up a cross like you're Dracula. And, and now, they have 4, not one gambling partner wasn't enough. They have 4, and paying them like $2 billion a year. And you can, and that's, another interesting thing is, that's creeping into college sports, because there were, at least, 10 or 12 colleges that had or have set up now sponsorships with gaming, as they call them now, corporations, I was reading where some of them are sort of tapping the brake on that and backing off. I get the main one, and this is LSU, which signed with has a thing with Caesar Sportsbook. They're like a full fledged. They're like Jeffrey Meldon is to UF, and I'm not sure if they're backing off, but it's if you're an AD and you go to your president and say, all right, we can get $2 million a year from a gaming site, and do we compromise our ethics?
Well, they already are. They have in Las Vegas gambling houses doing it, and it's longer. Listen, when they started having Americans going over to the British Open, and they found out they could bet on themselves to play golf, everybody did it in England. It was a whole different thing then, and golf is. But anyway, so it's the whole thing with gambling. And Shane said this. He's right. He had a little bump in the road himself with it when he was in college. Not anything unethical, but anyway. Bottom line is that we all know that in college we had the parlay cards and people always had those and things of that nature. But Shane says, what did they think was going to happen? You spread this, you have gambling all around the program. You have sponsors sponsoring teams and games and whatever, casinos. And all of a sudden, they're going to have these realizations that, my word, players are going to get involved in gambling. The worst part about the whole Alabama thing is we don't know what happened, but it was left to suggest that the coach was somehow involved in, I won't say fixing the score, the game, but some involvement in that. And you might, David, remember reading about the Saturday Evening Post thing with Bear Bryant and Wally Butts and the story that broke there, and Furman Bisher's part in that, and how it really eventually broke the Saturday Evening Post. So gambling's been around a long time, and it's I don't know, Lauren, what can we do about it? Anything you suggest?
I mean, I think it's there's so much out there right now. I mean, I think like David said, it's like, why can't a guy that plays at LSU, why can't he, bet on the British Open? Or, I mean, I think it's just, I think we put rules on what we want to be normal citizens, but then we tell them they can't do the things that normal citizens can do, on a daily basis. Right. And I think that's where, you just get into, it's just a slippery slope all the way around. And, the worry is just like with NIL, everybody was like, yeah, this really makes sense. But then the wheels have come off with this NIL thing where it's just off the rails. And I think the concern with the gambling is, like you said, when it becomes an issue where you kind of give everybody free range, then there can be influence, there can be deception, there can be deceit. And I think the worry is, that the game will be sullied. But on the same token, like I said, 4, 5, 6 years ago, if you waived Las Vegas at any sports franchise, they were like, no. And now, it's full-fledged. They're holding the draft there, probably going to have a Super Bowl there. And so I think, at the end of the day, money rules everything. So I won't, I'm not sure what you can do. I mean, I really
it's a danger zone.
Yeah, it's the more money, the more popular that these games get, all the sports as a whole, then I think it's just, I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to be, I don't know what you can do.
Okay, I'm going to let David go to bed because it's time for his milk and cookies, and he's got to crawl up to his teddy bear and go to sleep. But before I do, any final thoughts, David?
I say bet on what was it, Mace to win the wait, I'm a week behind.
Yeah, well, go with it. What the heck? It's better than betting on Forte, which I was going to do. So
yeah. I will say I was never more impressed with a sporting event than my first Kentucky Derby, where back then any gambling, if you were a sports writer and you bet on something you're covering, was taboo. It was grounds for getting fired.
Oh yeah.
So you wander up to the press box at Churchill Downs, and there's a betting window there. Spend money on it. I'm like, have I entered like a parallel universe where all these?
I had a few good days at that gambling window.
Oh yeah.
And one time, Sonny Salas brought me $1,000. That's the most money I ever won at a track. And I was bragging to my I was bragging to my boss in Denver about it, and he said, "Well, I don't know if that's you should be doing that." What do you mean? That's
Hey,
pari-mutuel. I mean, yeah.
that's right.
But yeah,
And it's in the press box. It's the Derby,
yeah,
and
yeah,
of course, I could see them saying, if it lost, you'd be right. That send Sunday silence to the glue factory immediately, kind of thing.
yeah.
But
Well, I loved him, so he got me made, and he wanted me money at the Preakness too. So there you go. All right, David, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
all right,
You're
see
okay
y'all
with the
guys later.
next. You're okay with the Nixon sticker, even though we don't like it. All right.
All right, yeah, next
All
week.
right. All right. Thank you, David Whitley. And I think it's time for your trivia before it gets too late, Lauren. We forgot about it. I
Yeah,
didn't
we
forget
can put
about
out
it. All right. Let's put it out there. You work hard. It goes out every week to Spurs Grand Grill and does this.
Lauren Meadows with Gator Bait Media coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill with Tuesday Night Trivia. The famous Mr. Two Bits, George Edmondson, was given an honorary degree to the University of Florida. But what Southern university did Mr. Two Bits actually attend? Be the first to answer and you'll be entered into our monthly drawing for swag and other prizes. With Gator Bait Media, this is Lauren Meadows coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
And with that, he got his bag of food, went home to Miss Marcia, and they had dinner. Let me get this
I did.
in. Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And by the way, the next time you're in town, I'll serve you this. So we'll show our little goodie bag here that I'm proud to say it even has grown more than this. This is my little BuddyTowers.com thing where I'm supposed to make a salad tonight, but I didn't get it done. But we take that from our tower, and then we make something delicious out of it, like this. And then you'll see when you get here how good that tastes. We do this kind of thing, and it's really delicious. So, Lauren, you got to come out for it. I got you and Fran scheduled to come and have one of these. Hold on one second. It's queuing up right now. This is our Martin collaboration right there. So there you go. Good stuff right there. We grew it, and we didn't grow the beef. But so if you're interested in knowing how to do this, I know Ben Troop's mom's going to DM me and let me know, and I'll get you information on. I think it's BuddyTowers.com. How you can get your own. All right, there it is. All right, let's do this. Let's talk a little ball. Let's bring our friend, our junior member in, who's been busting it the last couple of days, tracking the stories down in the transfer portal or whatever. Look, he's not Lauren Meadows. His name is not Lauren Meadows. He wishes his name was Lauren Meadows. Kyle Curtis in the house. What's up, Kyle?
What's going on, guys?
Well, you got the news story of the day right now in terms of what happened to the guy. Lauren, maybe you didn't know about this. The defensive back from Louisiana we thought Billy might get is going to Alabama, right, Kyle?
So said he was going to Alabama earlier. This is a guy that I think I said it on the show a week or two ago that, he got 20 something offers, Power 5 SEC offers within that first day that he entered the portal. So he ended up going to Alabama, obviously a hit. He played a year for Napier, recruited by Napier. So a little bit disappointing. On the brighter side, there is a guy from Rhode Island who just announced today that he is taking a visit there, Antonio Carter. Yes. Yeah, he's a guy, offers from LSU, Kentucky, Notre Dame. I think they're looking for depth in that defensive backfield. So that's kind of where we're at for the transfer portal news right now.
Yeah, I thought I'd show you this. I showed earlier to David Whitley. This is the schedules, how they're ranked by this guy Ford, whatever his name is. There it is right there. Number one in the country, toughest schedule, Florida. So when you look at that DraftKings projection of 5.5 wins, maybe you see the reason right there. But look to the top 15, you see a ton of SEC teams. You see them all the way up through 17. You see lots of SEC teams, mostly SEC teams, tough schedules. So Florida, Gators got their work cut out. They're going to need some help. And I don't know if they're going to get into portal or not. What do you think, Lauren?
I don't know if it's going to be anything life-changing like Kyle said. I think it'll be something to add some depth. Like I said, I like the safety pickup. last week in Moulton. I thought, like I said, they needed a plug and play safety. You know, I mean, it's really going to come down to two things. I mean, they got to stop people. You know, they got to get off the field, and then, you know, they got to get solid quarterback play. I mean, it's literally going to come down to that. I mean, you look at last year as bad as you look at it on paper, there were probably, you know, 2 to 3 wins there that could have led to an eight win season, maybe a 9-win season. You know, and I think it's going to be the same thing this year. They're going to be in some close ball games, and if Billy Napier can do kind of what he did in Louisiana the last 2 years, and what did he go like 15-1 in one-score games or something like that, or if he kind of goes where he was at Florida, where he was basically, I think 1-5 in one-score games, you know, it's going to be the same thing. I think we're at a point right now where we're starting to see a lot more parity in the SEC, in the conference. And, you know, he's got some tough road tests. You know, Kentucky is not going to be an easy place to go, you know, early in the year. He's got to go to LSU, you know. So I just, you know, it's going to be one of those things. And I think the biggest thing for Billy is going to be to manage the optics of the whole thing. Because, like, you know, I get frustrated and take the media side out of it. Just as a football guy, I think he plays a lot close to the vest. And you can do that when you win an 8-9 ball games a year, but when you 5.5 and, you know, they're setting over unders there, it just doesn't look good, man. And like somebody today was like, the Florida State fan told me, you know, and they said, man, I don't like that everybody really thinks, and I'm one of them that thinks Florida State can be a good football team. And I said, well, you're Florida State. People expect you to be good, and people expect Florida to be good. Florida in the doldrums is not a good thing for the whole big picture of football. And I just
college
think
football,
that
SEC, state of Florida, definitely
yeah,
not.
it's just not good. And so, you know, like I said, I want to give Coach Napier the benefit of the doubt, but you know, I mean, they like I said, they got to stop people, they got to get off the field. They got to flip the field, and then they got to get great QB play. I mean, as much as we love Anthony Richardson, the QB play was subpar last year.
I don't know. Shane says they're going to win 8 games, and Mertz is going to be a good player.
Yeah,
that's what Shane
says. And he ain't the only one. He ain't the only one. I've talked to several people that are a lot closer to the program than we are at times, and they feel the same way. So, as a fan, I hope that's. Well, as a fan and a member of the media, it'd be a lot more fun to cover if they win eight ball games or so.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been cast as a Debbie Downer, Kyle, this morning on Shane's show when I said what I thought about this team, how I was having a hard time finding right now more than 6 wins. Not saying they don't get them, but right now that's what based on the limited knowledge we've seen. They said, "Oh, buddy's Debbie Downer," and all of a sudden he's negative. And, that's funny. Last year I was a sunshine pumper. Now I'm Debbie Downer. So I don't know. Help me out, Kyle. What do I got to do here?
I think it's especially with this whole college football playoff thing. You're seeing, you know, there's not any of these FCS cupcake games right out the gate anymore. You're seeing, you know, schools schedule, you know, Utah, Florida State was playing Bama last year. Like all these opening, you know, games that. When I was a kid, you go to a Florida game and they beat an FCS team or something like that. I think kind of we're getting away from that, especially in the beginning of the year, because it's all about resume nowadays, and just getting to that point where you can be a top 4 team and build the best resume.
They do have not exactly have Alabama on their schedule, and they got Charlotte and McNeese State, whatever. Those are all games. We put the schedule back up here and say. If you know this is not the thing. Look at the schedule. If this were 3 years ago, how many of those would be W's? Look at those. You'd be counting 5-6 wins right out of the chute, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you lose to Utah and win, and maybe you win the rest right up to Georgia, right? But today there ain't really McNeese State and and even McNeese State and Charlotte. Look like the only sure thing, although Florida, according to ESPN, is favored in 8 games. So I don't know, fellas, what do you think? What do you see there, Lauren?
I'm going to say, man, that Rice Eccles game right out the gate, that's going to be a tough one. I see 8 but I think one of those 8 will be a game that maybe they're not supposed to get, possibly.
Well,
and I think they beat Florida State at home the last game of the season.
Kyle?
I think they get 7, and I think that they win one they're supposed to win, and I also think that they lose one that they probably should have won.
All right, it's time to reveal, Lauren, your answers to your question and see who you got to win this week.
I don't see any correct answers. So someone came close, but
don't tell us. Let's leave it up for next week.
Okay, we can leave it. They're going to Google it.
Once again, Coach Meadows once again bringing the hard stuff. Yeah, 98 miles an hour up in the chin.
Here's the thing, though. If you're a low buddy listener, you said the answer several times.
Yeah, we got to listen to the show.
That's where I got it from.
There you go.
You got to listen to the show.
Love you.
Got to be on the show.
That's the idea, right, Kyle? All right, Kyle, you got a story coming out here in a couple of days or so. What you got going on?
Yeah, so I'm first off, I'm writing a little wrap up on the Trey Amos thing, and then Matthew is doing a kind of transfer portal wrap up, so that'll be out. And then I'm also I've been researching a little bit. I don't know if you guys know about the tournament. It's kind of this, basketball tournament they do of ex-college guys and stuff like that, where it's a
old guys league.
Yeah,
old guys like Lauren. Like Lauren.
Yeah, so they're Lauren could hoop on all of them.
Lauren should be hooping with them.
No, I played with some of them guys. I can't. Or some of the guys that used to play. No, I can't. I can't hoop with those.
But Torian Green's coaching up those guys, and it's guys like Scotty Wilbekin, Igor Kulishov, Flanders Fleming, a lot of familiar faces. So I'm excited. It's been fun kind of researching about that, and I'm excited for the actual tournament to see those guys play again.
I wish I had the shirt concession with those names. You can on the back of those shirts. Yeah. All right, you can read them in Gator again. Lauren will make an appearance soon one day, whether it's track or softball or something. He's back now. We got to put him to work. Kyle, get him going again. He's been on that vacation to roll too long. You got to get that cushy vacation. Got to go back to work, Coach. Right?
I'm gonna find some inspiration for sure.
All right, my man. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much. Good job.
All right, you guys have a good night.
All right, good night.
All right.
Coach and little coach. All right. Thanks, Lauren. All right, let me get him off the screen, get him to bed. There you go. All right, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at WinStar, who are such special people who make this show possible and also do great work in our community for our health, which I really appreciate. Folks at WinStar Medical Research are sponsors of this program and other big things that are important to us in our community. And they just what they do alone in medicine is worth the price of admission. I know them all down there, and they've been doing this for quite a long time. And they have a first-class facility in downtown Ocala. It's a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility. And WinStar brings cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraine, fibromyalgia, dementia, along with many other conditions that affect us here in this community. You can take part in these if you're interested. You can do the clinical research, and they can gather data on people in the DA in this area right here. And you can go to winstar.net and find out what the next one is and what it's about, and see if you qualify. They take this information and they partner up with prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry, and so we can have a better, healthier life. So check it out, winstar.net. WinStar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks to David Whitley and to Lauren Meadows and Kyle Curtis. Have a great night. Tomorrow night, we've got our team back. We're going to have Allie and David Moulton. More of the Buddy Martin Show. Come join us. By the way, check out Gator Bait. Always good stuff to read there. Appreciate it. Good night.